You Only Live Twice film. You Only Live Twice is a 1967 spy film and the fifth in the James Bond series produced by Eon Productions, starring Sean Connery as the fictional MI6 agent James Bond. It is the first Bond film to be directed by Lewis Gilbert, who later directed the 1977 film The Spy Who Loved Me and the 1979 film Moonraker, both starring Roger Moore. The screenplay of You Only Live Twice was written by Roald Dahl and loosely based on Ian Fleming's 1964 novel of the same name. It is the first James Bond film to discard most of Fleming's plot, using only a few characters and locations from the book as the background for an entirely new story. In the film, Bond is dispatched to Japan after American and Soviet crewed spacecraft disappear mysteriously in orbit, each nation blaming the other amidst the Cold War. Bond travels secretly to a remote Japanese island to find the perpetrators and comes face to face with Ernst Stavro Blofeld, the head of SPECTRE. The film reveals the appearance of Blofeld, who was previously a partially unseen character. SPECTRE is working for the government of an unnamed Asian power, implied to be the People's Republic of China, to provoke war between the superpowers. During the filming in Japan, it was announced that Sean Connery would retire from the role of Bond, but after one film's absence, he returned in 1971's Diamonds Are Forever and later 1983's non-Eon Bond film Never Say Never Again. You Only Live Twice was a great success, receiving positive reviews and grossing over $111 million in worldwide box office. However, the film was the first in the series to have a decline in box office revenue owing to the oversaturation of the spy movie genre contributed to by the franchise's imitators, including the recent and poorly received competing James Bond film Casino Royale from Columbia Pictures that was released previously in the same year. Plot: American NASA spacecraft Jupiter 16 is hijacked from orbit by an unidentified spaceship. The United States suspects it to be the work of the Soviets, but the British suspect Japanese involvement since the spacecraft, after having swallowed Jupiter 16, landed in the Sea of Japan. To investigate, MI6 operative James Bond is sent to Tokyo after faking his own death in Hong Kong and being buried at sea from HMS Tenby. Upon his arrival, Bond attends a sumo match where he is approached by Japanese Secret Service agent Aki, who takes him to meet local MI6 operative Deco Henderson. Henderson claims to have critical evidence about the rogue craft, but is killed before he can elaborate. Bond chases and kills the assailant, taking the assailant's clothing as a disguise, and is driven in the getaway car to Asato Chemicals. Once there, Bond subdues the driver and breaks into the office safe of the company's president, Mr. Asato. After obtaining secret documents, Bond is pursued by armed security, but is rescued by Aki, who flees to a secluded subway station. Bond chases her, but falls down a trap door leading to the office of the head of the Japanese Secret Service, Tiger Tanaka. The stolen documents are examined and found to include a photograph of the cargo ship Ningpo, with a microdot message saying the tourist who took the photo was killed as a security precaution. While at Tanaka's spa, Bond meets with Aki again. The pair kiss and Bond carries Aki to his bed. Bond goes back to Asato Chemicals to meet Mr. Asato himself, masquerading as a potential new buyer. Asato humors Bond, but after their meeting, he orders his secretary, Helga Brandt, to have him killed. Both are revealed to be SPECTRE agents. Outside the building, assassins open fire on Bond before Aki rescues him again. Bond and Aki drive to Kobe, where the Ningpo is docked. They investigate the company's dock facilities and discover that the ship was delivering elements for rocket fuel. They are discovered, but Bond eludes the henchmen until Aki gets away. However, Bond is captured. He wakes tied up in Brandt's cabin on the Ningpo. Brandt interrogates Bond before seducing him. Brandt flies Bond to Tokyo the next day, but en route, she sets off a flare in the plane, seals Bond in his seat and bails out, assuming Bond will die in the crash, 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 in the crash. Bond manages to evade the trap, lands the plane, and flees before it explodes. After finding out where the Ningpo unloaded, Bond flies over the area in a heavily armed autogyro created by Q, called Little Nelly. Near a volcano, Bond is attacked by and defeats 4 helicopters, confirming his suspicions that the enemy's base is nearby. A Soviet spacecraft is then captured in orbit by another unidentified craft, heightening tensions with the United States. The mysterious spaceship lands in an extensive base hidden inside the volcano. It soon turns out that the true mastermind behind this is Ernst Stavro Blofeld, the mysterious leader of SPECTRE, who has been hired by a great power strongly implied to be the People's Republic of China to start a Soviet-American war in order for them to destroy each other so that China can replace them as the world's new superpower. Blofeld summons Asato and Brandt to his office to answer for not having killed Bond. Asato immediately blames his assistant, Brandt. Blofeld gives them a last chance, but as Brandt leaves, he activates a mechanism that drops her to her death into a pool filled with piranhas. Blofeld then orders Asato to kill Bond. Bond then meets Tanaka and Aki in Kyoto, where they plan to infiltrate the island by disguising Bond as a Japanese fisherman, alongside a wife amongst Tiger himself and 100 of his ninjas. Aki is told she cannot play the part of Bond's wife as she is not known on the island, and while still in Kyoto she is killed by a Spectre agent during an attempt on Bond's life. Following a second attempt on his life by another assassin, Bond is introduced to Tanaka's student, Kissy Suzuki, who is to act as his wife. Acting on her lead, a funeral for an Amo girl who died recently, the pair reconnoiter a cave booby-trapped with poison and the volcano above it. Establishing that the mouth of the volcano is a disguised hatch to the secret rocket base, Bond slips in while Kissy goes to alert Tanaka. Bond locates and frees the captured American and Soviet astronauts and, with their help, steals a space suit in an attempt to infiltrate the Spectre spacecraft, Bird 1. However, Blofeld spots Bond mishandling his equipment, and he is detained while Bird 1 is launched with a backup astronaut. Bond is taken into the control room where he meets Blofeld face to face for the first time. Blofeld kills Asato to demonstrate the price of failure to kill Bond. Bird 1 closes in on an American space capsule, and U.S. forces prepare to launch a nuclear attack on the USSR. Meanwhile, a team of Japanese ninjas trained by Tanaka approach the base's entrance, but are detected and fired upon. Bond manages to open the hatch, letting in the ninjas. During the ensuing battle, Bond fights his way back to the control room, kills Blofeld's bodyguard Hans by tossing him into the piranha pool, and activates Bird 1's self-destruct before it reaches the American craft. The Americans promptly stand down their forces. Blofeld activates the base's self-destruct system, a bomb that triggers a volcanic eruption, and escapes. Bond, Kissy, Tanaka, and the surviving ninjas leave before the eruption destroys the base, and are picked up by the Japanese maritime forces and the British Secret Service. Cast. Production. On Her Majesty's Secret Service was the intended next film after Thunderball 1965, but the producers decided to adapt You Only Live Twice instead because owns would require searching for high and snowy locations. Lewis Gilbert originally declined the offer to direct, but accepted after producer Albert R. Broccoli called him saying, "You can't give up this job. It's the largest audience in the world." Peter R. Hunt, who edited the first 5 Bond films, believed that Gilbert had been contracted by the producers for other work, but they found they had to use him. Ted Moore, the director of photography on the first 4 films, was unavailable because he was filming A Man for All Seasons and was replaced by Freddie Young. Gilbert, young producers Broccoli and Harry Saltzman, and production designer Ken Adam then went to Japan, spending 3 weeks searching for locations. Spectre's Shore Fortress headquarters was changed to an extinct volcano after the team learned that the Japanese do not build castles by the sea. The group was due to return to the UK on a Boeing 707 flight Boeing Flight 911 on 5 March 1966, but cancelled after being told they had a chance to watch a ninja demonstration. That flight crashed 25 minutes after takeoff, killing all on board. In Tokyo, the crew also found Hunt, who decided to go on holiday after having his request to direct declined. Hunt was invited to direct the second unit for You Only Live Twice and accepted the job. Unlike most James Bond films, which usually feature various locations around the world, almost the entire film is set in one country, and several minutes are devoted to an elaborate Japanese wedding. This is in keeping with Fleming's original novel, which also devoted a number of pages to the discussion of Japanese culture. Toho Studios provided sound stages, personnel, and the female Japanese stars to the producers. Writing. The first draft was written by Sidney Boham based closely on the original novel. The producers had Harold Jack Bloom come to Japan with them to write a screenplay. His work was ultimately rejected, but since several of his ideas were used in the final script, he was given the credit of additional story material. Among these elements were the opening with Bond's fake death and burial at sea and the ninja attack. As the screenwriter of the previous Bond films, Richard Maibaum was unavailable. Roald Dahl, a close friend of Ian Fleming, was chosen to write the adaptation, despite having no prior experience writing a screenplay except for the uncompleted The Bells of Helgo Ting-a-ling-a-ling. Dahl said that the original novel was Fleming's worst book, with no plot in it which would even make a movie, and compared it to a travelogue, stating that he had to create a new plot though I could retain only 4 or 5 of the original story's ideas. On creating the plot, Dahl said he did not know what the hell Bond was going to do despite having to deliver the first draft in 6 weeks, and decided to do a basic plot similar to Dr. No. He was inspired by the story of a missing nuclear-armed U.S. Air Force bomber over Spain and by the Soviet Union and the United States' recent first spacewalks from Voskhod 2 and Gemini 4. Dahl was given a free rein on his script, except for the character of Bond and the girl formula, involving 3 women for Bond to seduce an ally and a henchwoman who both get killed, and the main Bond girl. While the third involved a character from the book, Kissy Suzuki, Dahl had to create a key and Helga Brandt to fulfill the rest. Gilbert was mostly collaborative with Dahl's work, as the writer declared. He not only helped in script conferences, but had some good ideas and then left you alone, and when you produced the finished thing, he shot it. Other directors have such an ego that they want to rewrite it and put their own dialogue in, and it's usually disastrous. What I admired, Charles Gray, who played Deco Henderson, actually says the famous "shaken not stirred" line the other way round, saying that is stirred not shaken. That was right, wasn't it? Bond replies, perfect. Casting. When the time came to begin You Only Live Twice, the producers were faced with the problem of a disenchanted star. Sean Connery had stated that he was tired of playing James Bond and all of the associated commitment time spent filming and publicizing each movie, together with finding it difficult to do other work, which would potentially lead to typecasting. Saltzman and Broccoli were able to persuade Connery by increasing his fee for the film, but geared up to look for a replacement. When the film was intended to be an adaptation of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, it was originally to include the twist that Ernst Stavro Blofeld was Auric Goldfinger's twin brother portrayed by Gert Frobe. Jan Werich was originally cast by producer Harry Saltzman to play Blofeld. Upon his arrival at the Pinewood set, both producer Albert R. Broccoli and director Lewis Gilbert felt that he was a poor choice, resembling a poor, benevolent Father Christmas. Nonetheless, in an attempt to make the casting work, Gilbert continued filming. After several days, both Gilbert and Broccoli determined that Werich was not menacing enough and recast Blofeld with Donald Pleasence in the role. Pleasence's ideas for Blofeld's appearance included a hump, a limp, a beard, and a lame hand before he settled on the scar. He found it uncomfortable, though, because of the glue that attached it to his eye. Many European models were tested for Helga Brandt, including German actress Eva Renzi, who passed on the film, with German actress Karin Dor being cast. Dor performed the stunt of diving into a pool to depict Helga's demise, without the use of a double. Dor was dubbed for the German release. UACO Bud Ornstein met with Toshiro Mifune in the Canary Islands to try to convince him to play Tiger Tanaka, but he was already committed to appear in Grand Prix. Gilbert had chosen Tetsuro Tamba after working with him in The Seventh Dawn. A number of martial arts experts were hired as the ninjas. The two Japanese female parts proved difficult to cast due to most of the actresses tested having little English. Akiko Wakabayashi and Mai Hama, both Toho Studios stars, were eventually chosen and started taking English classes in the UK. Hama, initially cast in the role of Tanaka's assistant, had difficulty with the language. Initially, the producers were going to fire her, but after Tamba suggested she would commit suicide if they did so, instead switched her role with Wakabayashi, who had been cast as Kissy, a part with less dialogue. Wakabayashi only requested that her character name Suki be changed to Aki. Filming of You Only Live Twice lasted from July 1966 to March 1967. The film was shot primarily in Japan, and most of the locations are identifiable. In summary, Tokyo. After arriving in Japan at Akaime, Bond goes to Tokyo. The initial scenes are set in and around the Ginza area. The Hotel New Atani Tokyo served as the outside for Asato Chemicals, and the hotel's gardens were used for scenes of the ninja training. A car chase using the Toyota 2000 GT and a Toyota Crown was largely filmed in the area around the Olympic Stadium, used previously for the 1964 Summer Olympics. Tokyo Tower and the center of Tokyo can be briefly seen in a sequence where the villain's car is dropped in Tokyo Bay. Tanaka's private subway station was filmed at the Tokyo Metro's Nakano Shimbashi Station. A sumo wrestling match was filmed at Tokyo's Sumo Hall, the Kurami Kakujikin. This has since been demolished. Kobe Docks appears in a sequence when Bond investigates the ship Ningpo and is involved in a fight. Bond's wedding at a Shinto shrine was filmed in Nacha. Haimji Castle in Hyogo Prefecture was depicted as Tanaka's ninja training camp. The village of Bonatsucho was where Bond and his Ama wife lived, and where the Ama scenes were shot. The Ryokan Shichitomi, so now known as Shimazu Shichitomiso Manor, was used as the exterior of Tanaka's house. Kagoshima Prefecture was the location for various scenes depicting Little Nelly. See below. Mount Shinmo Dake in Kyushu was used for the exteriors of Spectre's headquarters. Most of the interiors were shot at Pinewood. The opening sequence in Hong Kong used some location footage of a street in Kowloon. Hong Kong's Victoria Harbour is also shown, but the at-sea burial of Bond and the retrieval of the corpse was filmed off Gibraltar and the Bahamas. The scenes with the light aircraft ferrying Bond to his supposed death were shot over very English-looking countryside in Buckinghamshire, whereas this was supposed to be Japan. Large crowds were present in Japan to see the shooting. A Japanese fan began following Sean Connery with a camera, and police had to deal with fan incursions several times during shooting. The heavily armed W-116 autogyro Little Nelly was included after Ken Adam heard a radio interview with its inventor, RAF Wing Commander Ken Wallace. Little Nelly was named after Music Hall star Nellie Wallace, who has a similar surname to its inventor. Wallace piloted his invention, which was equipped with various mock-up armaments by John Steer's special effects team during production. Nelly's battle with helicopters proved to be difficult to film. The scenes were initially shot in Miyazaki, first with takes of the gyrocopter, with more than 85 takeoffs, 5 hours of flight, and Wallace nearly crashing into the camera several times. A scene filming the helicopters from above created a major downdraft, and cameraman John Jordan's foot was severed by the craft's rotor. It was surgically reattached by surgeons visiting the country, and then amputated in London when the surgery was deemed to have been flawed. Jordan would continue work for the Bond series with a prosthetic foot. The concluding shots involved explosions, which the Japanese government did not allow in a national park, hence, the crew moved to Torremolinos, Spain, which was found to resemble the Japanese landscape. The shots of the volcano were filmed at Shinmodake on Kyushu Island. The sets of Spectre's volcano base, including operative heliport and monorail, were constructed at a lot inside Pinewood Studios at a cost of $1 million. The 45 148 FT tall set could be seen from 5 kilometers, 3 miles away, and attracted many people from the region. Locations outside Japan included using the Royal Navy frigate HMS Tenby, then in Gibraltar, for the sea burial, Hong Kong for the scene where Bond fakes his death. Sean Connery's then-wife Diane Silento performed the swimming scenes for at least 5 Japanese actresses, including Mai Hama. Martial arts expert Don F. Drager provided martial arts training and also doubled for Connery. Lewis Gilbert's regular editor, Thelma Connell, was originally hired to edit the film. However, after her initial, almost 3-hour cut received a terrible response from test audiences, Peter R. Hunt was asked to re-edit the film. Hunt's cut proved a much greater success, and he was awarded the director's chair on the next film as a result. Music. The soundtrack was the fourth of the series to be composed by John Barry. He tried to incorporate the elegance of the Oriental sound with Japanese music-inspired track. The theme song, You Only Live Twice, was composed by Barry and lyricist Leslie Bricusse and sung by Nancy Sinatra after her father Frank Sinatra passed on the opportunity. Nancy Sinatra was reported to be very nervous while recording. First, she wanted to leave the studio. Then she claimed to sometimes sound like Minnie Mouse. Barry declared that the final song uses 25 different takes. There are 2 versions of the song You Only Live Twice, sung by Nancy Sinatra, one directly from the movie soundtrack, and a second one for record release arranged by Billy Strange. The movie soundtrack song is widely recognized for its striking opening bars and Oriental flavor, and was far more popular on radio. The record release reached No. 44 on the Billboard charts in the US and No. 11 in the UK. Both versions of the title song are available on CD. A different title song was originally recorded by Julie Rogers, but eventually discarded. Only 2 lines from that version were kept in the final lyrics, and the orchestral part was changed to fit Sinatra's vocal range. Rogers' version only appeared in a James Bond 30th anniversary CD, with no singer credit. In the 1990s, an alternative example of a possible theme song, also called You Only Live Twice, and sung by Lorraine Chandler, was discovered in the vaults of RCA Records. It became a very popular track with followers of the Northern soul scene. Chandler was well known for her high-quality soul output on RCA and can be found on several RCA soul compilations. Promotion. To promote the film, United Artists Television produced a 1-hour color television program titled Welcome to Japan, Mr. Bond, which first aired on 2 June 1967 in the United States on NBC. Bond regulars Lois Maxwell and Desmond Llewellyn appeared, playing respectively Miss Moneypenny and Q. Kate O'Mara appears as Miss Moneypenny's assistant. The program shows clips from You Only Live Twice and the then 4 existing Bond films, and contained a storyline of Moneypenny trying to establish the identity of Bond's bride. Release and reception. You Only Live Twice premiered at the Odeon Leicester Square in London on 12 June 1967, with Queen Elizabeth II in attendance. The film opened the following day in the United Kingdom and United States, set an opening day record at the Odeon Leicester Square, and went to number 1 in the United States with a weekend gross of $600,000. It grossed $7 million from 161 theaters in the United States in its first 3 weeks, and was number 1 for 7 weeks. The film grossed $43 million in the United States and over $68 million worldwide. Contemporary reviews. Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times awarded the film 2.5 stars out of 4, in which he criticized the focus on gadgets, declaring the formula fails to work its magic. Like its predecessor Thunderball, another below-par entry, this one is top-heavy with gadgets but weak on plotting and getting everything to work at the same time. Bosley Crowther, reviewing for the New York Times, felt there's enough of the bright and bland bravado of the popular British super sleuth mixed into this melee of rocket launching to make it a bag of good Bond fun. And there's so much of that scientific clatter, so much warring of super capsules out in space and fussing with electronic gadgets in a great secret underground. Time was sharply critical of the film, claiming the franchise had become the victim of the same misfortune that once befell Frankenstein. There have been so many flamboyant imitations that the original looks like a copy. The reviewer later derided that the effects are ineffective. The outer space sequences would be more appropriate in a grade school educational short entitled Our Amazing Universe, and the volcanic climax is a series of clumsy process shots that no one took the trouble to fix. Even Connery seems uncomfortable and fatigued. Clifford Terry, reviewing for the Chicago Tribune, remarked that a large percentage of You Only Live Twice is disappointing, lacking the wit and zip, the pacing and punch of its predecessors, especially the first three. Roald Dahl's script is larded with sex-slanted jokes that are either pathetically feeble or sophomorically coarse. Bond's patented puns are puner, and retrospective reviews. On the review aggregation website Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of 73% based on 49 reviews with an average rating of 6.53/10. The website's critical consensus reads, with exotic locales, impressive special effects, and a worthy central villain, You Only Live Twice overcomes a messy and implausible story. James Berardinelli of Real Views said that the first half was good, but it's only during the second half, as the plot escalates beyond the bounds of preposterousness, that the film starts to fragment, criticizing Blofeld's appearance and stating rockets that swallow up spacecraft are a bit too extravagant. Ollie Barclay of BBC Films lightly criticized Dahl's script, writing that Dahl had clearly helped thrust Bond into a whole new world of villainy and technology. Maybe his concepts were slightly ahead of themselves, or maybe he just tried too hard. Leo Goldsmith lauded the volcano base as the most impressive of Ken Adams' sets for the franchise. Danny Peary wrote that You Only Live Twice should have been about 20 minutes shorter, and described it as not a bad Bond film, but it doesn't compare to its predecessors. The formula had become a little stale. IGN ranked You Only Live Twice as the fourth best Bond film and Entertainment Weekly as the second best, considering that it pushes the series to the outer edge of. However, Norman Wilner of MSN chose it as the fifth worst, criticizing the plot, action scenes, and lack of screen time for Blofeld. Literary critic Paul Simpson called the film one of the most colorful of the series and credited the prefecture of Kagoshima for adding a good flavor of Japanese influence on the film, but he panned the depiction of Blofeld as a let-down, small, bald, and a whooping scar. Simon Winder said that the film is perfect for parodies of the series. John Brosnan, in his book James Bond in the Cinema, compared the film to an episode of Thunderbirds with a reliance on gadgetry, but admitted it had pace and spectacle. Christopher Null considered the film to be one of James Bond's most memorable adventures, but the plot protracting and quite confusing. The film is recognized by the American Film Institute in these lists. 2003 AFI 100 Years. 100 Heroes and Villains. Ernst Stavro Blofeld nominated villain.